For a session presented by Beyond Pricing, please welcome the CEO of Beyond Pricing, Julie Brinkman, in conversation with Skift's research editor, Jeremy Cressman.
Hi, everybody. Julie, welcome to today's Online Travel and Distribution Summit. We're happy to have you.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm super happy to be here, and just echoing the former presenter's comments. We've been watching from the sideline as Skift has just done an incredible job during this pandemic. So thank you so much for having me today, and thank you for everyone in attendance.
Thanks. It's so nice to hear that. So, Julie, let me start by giving you my understanding of what Beyond Pricing does. My understanding is you guys offer revenue management software for short-term rental owners and for managers. Maybe you could tell me in your own words what Beyond Pricing does, and also just why it's such an important sector to be focusing on right now.
Sure. So Beyond Pricing, what we are at our core are all of the tools that a short-term rental owner or manager needs to get, grow, and keep revenue. As our name implies, we started with dynamic pricing, which we felt was the most important place to start with short-term rental owners and managers. However, we quickly realized that if you have the best prices, but they aren't in the right places, it does you no good. And so we expanded to OTA and online distribution with our Relay product, and have since evolved to not only distribute, but also capture demand via our direct booking and website building business. And all of that's really wrapped in our world-class customer support. Why that's important today is, as Skift has seen, short-term rental space is blowing up. And, today the demand for short-term rentals is greater than it's ever been. And we're seeing, growth across the board. So we believe that short-term rental owners and managers need to be equipped with the best tooling and the best capabilities to compete on the global marketplace when it comes to online distribution.
Well, so let's dig into this question of distribution a bit more. Obviously, we have a lot of people from OTAs, distribution partners listening today. What do you actually advise a short-term rental manager to do when they think about this distribution question? Is there a specific channel or combination of channels that you're telling them is really going to work best for them? I know this has been sort of an unprecedented 12 months, but what are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. And, just to set the stage, of our 5,000 customers, most are independent, small to medium-sized businesses. So, they started from managing a friend's property or managing their own and have grown their businesses to these incredible enterprises. And they do really look to, folks like us to tell them, okay, where can we see the best bang for our buck? And similar to other small to medium-sized businesses that distribute physical inventory, you want to make sure that your online inventory is at the right place at the right time. But doing so can be pretty expensive. And so what we have looked at is really capitalizing on the major OTAs. So Airbnb, obviously, Vrbo, Booking, in certain geos, making sure that you're in the largest OTAs, you have a presence there, and really focusing your efforts on capturing guest demand from those OTAs. Once you get past 4 or 5 distribution channels, it becomes pretty prohibitively expensive to manage those channels, manage all the different reservations and channel markups. So we start to see a plateau of bookings growth with 4+ distribution channels.
Okay, so there's room for a lot of different distribution opportunities in there. It sounds like what you're saying is just be flexible, but don't get carried away is essentially what I'm hearing.
Exactly. You want to be making sure, as a property manager or a short-term rental owner, you have a lot on your plate, from fixing toilets to responding to guest inquiries. So managing distribution is just one part of your really, really extensive job. And so we want to make sure as you are putting your inventory out there, you're taking advantage of the most accretive channels.
So Julie, can you tell me more about this role you see for some of these third parties? We look at how big Airbnb has gotten with, demand for short-term rentals the past year. Certainly OTAs are distributing a lot more short-term rental inventory. Do you have any thoughts on listing strategies for these partners? And also, what do you do about a repeat customer? Does that repeat customer still need to be acquired through an OTA channel?
Sure. So it's a great question, Jeremy. And I mean, to be clear, Airbnb, Vrbo, Booking, they have done tremendous things for our industry, from providing visibility, making sure capital was directed toward short-term rental vendors, and just raising the bar of technology. They have really set the stage and been, on the forefront of driving the growth in this past year. However, as we think about a distribution strategy and we think about your revenue management strategy, OTAs are just one component of that. And as you alluded to, they're great to provide visibility and awareness to the guest base. They're generally going to be at the top of search rankings, either through AdWords or really strong SEO games. And as a short-term rental manager, you're just not going to be able to compete either from a content or a spend status. So what we advise our customers to do is build your visibility, build your brand, build your awareness vis-a-vis these OTAs. However, make sure you're providing that quality guest experience on the stay and the follow-up so that those guests return directly to you as a property manager and not back through the OTAs. You know, I think I read in the S1 for Airbnb, something like 60+% of bookings were repeat. You know, with each booking through OTAs, a property manager pays somewhere between 15 and 25%. That's significant when you're talking about only a 20% margin on total bookings. So, you know, if you think about Airbnb, Vrbo booking as your guest acquisition channel, your retention strategy really comes via your direct booking and guest experience.
Right. It's about that balance, I guess.
Exactly.
Julie, I wanted to ask you about Google specifically, because we heard last week Expedia made this decision. They actually pulled back some of their inventory from being visible on Google. You know, Google obviously now is displaying vacation rental properties in its meta search. What are your thoughts on the best use of Google right now? Does it kind of follow in line with what you were saying about Airbnb and other OTAs, or is it a little bit different?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. So I think anyone who underestimates Google is placing the wrong bet. It's clear that they are going to become a powerful player in the direct booking world. But today, the volume and the user experience just isn't where it needs to be. I'm guessing Vrbo either, you know, I think they cited those things in pulling back. They also stated, you know, they also implied that they're a competitor. So as Google continues to grow their volume and their share of bookings, it's likely that Google will also be competing for the same inventory that Vrbo is competing for. As a short-term rental owner or manager, though, you need to be looking at these up-and-coming channels. And Google, it's not going to be long before they improve that booking experience, before they increase their booking share, and before they really start becoming a major player in offering that direct booking back to the managers. So our advice to our short-term rental owners and managers is keep abreast of it. Make sure you're staying in touch with what you need in order to integrate with Google as it continues to improve that experience.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the flip side of the distribution experience, which I think maybe not the flip side, but another aspect, if you will, which would be direct booking.
Yep.
We've heard so much about hotels being asked or encouraged, if you will, to focus on direct and taking control of your customer relationship. Do you think that philosophy also applies to short-term rentals as well? Is it pretty much the same?
Well, I think, you know, it's almost like cheating, right? I can look at the hotel playbook over the last 20 years and see the arc that they've ran with distribution from the initial, you know, taking advantage of the OTAs, but then realizing that's really, really expensive, and then creating campaigns around booking direct and making sure you get the best price and the experience is top notch. Well, the same themes apply for short-term rental owners and managers as well. Those OTAs are going to bring those eyeballs, that visibility, that awareness to your brand, to your properties. But then you really want to capture that demand once you had a chance to acquire those guests. So I would expect that we would run that same trend line just as the same as hotels do, and continue to see increases in direct bookings across the board.
Now, I have to ask, it's related to direct booking, this question about brand building, right? You know, you think about how so many hotels have built these really strong brands. They're very recognizable, Accor, Marriott, Hyatt. How do you address that same kind of brand building conundrum when you're a short-term rental property? I mean, what do you do there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, I think if you look at the 2020 trends, it's clear that short-term rentals over and above performed the hotel experience, which is we need to continue to capitalize on this growth trajectory. And the way to do that is it really comes down to the quality of the guest experience before, during, and after the stay. So making sure that your website and booking experience directly is top-notch, can compete with those hotel brands. And then during the stay, providing that personal attention and experience. You know, I stayed recently in Sonoma for the weekend, and there was a bottle of wine and a personalized note. That's not going to happen at those major hotel chains.
Mhm.
And then making sure after you're staying in touch with that guest, catching up on how was the stay, and making sure you're making them aware of your other properties and availability. And I'll also say that in this time and age, most people are yearning to support small to medium-sized businesses. So even though you do not have a global brand, your ability to create that personal relationship with your guests on a direct basis will lead to your success.
Yeah, I can understand the value of building the personal relationships. Even at a session or a summit about online travel agencies, I think it's always really important to emphasize that. Julie, I wanted to ask, I think, just to wrap things up, do you have a prediction for the future of online distribution? This has been a really strange year. I'm wondering if the trends that we saw over the past 12 months are going to continue. Do you think it's going to be some new set of best practices? What do you see, or what themes you think are going to emerge for 2021?
Sure. I mean, yes, 2020 was one adjective to use is strange, but it was really formidable for short-term rentals. I think that the demand that we saw, the surge in demand, is not going away. When my parents are booking Airbnbs, that it's here to stay.
Right.
And so if I'm making a prediction about online distribution as it relates to short-term rental managers and owners, is that they'll continue to leverage their, really beneficial relationships with the OTAs. However, they'll also realize that they are able to build that direct relationship with their customers and seek to do so through through their experience with their direct booking or websites. So, as they've experienced this really tremendous growth over the past year and will continue to ride that wave, they'll want to make sure they continue to capture that demand via taking advantage of online distribution.
Okay. Well, we have a little bit of time left, so I'd love to ask an audience question if you're okay with that.
Sure.
So what is Beyond Pricing's pricing philosophy? Do you focus on parity across different channels? What are the main components to derive a single price, is what was asked?
Sure, that's a great question. So we look at really three core things when we're when we're developing our price. We want to look at local demand, we want to look at seasonality, as well as day of week. And those we look at across thousands of data points on a hyper-local basis, both from our internal data as well as scrape data, that we are predicting what a price will be, not just looking at what a price has been. So there's thousands of data points across the board that help determine what those price fluctuations will be on a daily basis versus a weekly or bi-weekly basis. In terms of price parity across all channels, we allow for our customers to change. We support channel markups across different channels. We do realize that owners and managers need to make sure they're recouping costs for distributing for different channels. However, we think that there is a short period of time where you're going to be able to really arbitrage across different channels before guests start comparing, well, it's one price here and another price here, therefore I'm going to book, on the lower price site. So while we support it, we do think that the time is coming where the ability to compare prices across channels is going to be more readily available to guests.
Julie, such an interesting time for short-term rentals. We really thank you for being here at the Skift Online Distribution Forum today. So thanks again.
Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate this, you offering me to be here.